Have you ever watched someone answer you warmly, then suddenly look somewhere else? That tiny shift can feel louder than anything they actually said afterward. You have probably felt that strange drop before your mind found words for it. A face stays friendly, the tone sounds normal, but something quietly stops matching. Their eyes move first and your body notices before your thoughts catch up. Most people dismiss that moment as awkwardness, randomness, or simple social clumsiness. But your brain usually flags it because two signals stopped cooperating at once. The words keep smoothing things over, while the eyes briefly reveal another story. And that mismatch is exactly why the moment feels difficult to ignore. You are not reading minds there, and you are not inventing drama either. You are catching a split-second conflict between expression, attention, and emotional control. Sometimes it is discomfort, sometimes attraction, sometimes guardedness, and sometimes a truth being edited. The important part is not the glance itself, but the timing around it. When the gaze shifts right after a question, compliment, or name, something gets activated. You may have noticed this in dating, at work, or during tense family conversations. Someone seems present, then their eyes slide away exactly when something becomes personal. Nothing dramatic happens, yet the whole interaction suddenly feels less queen to you. That is because the real signal rarely begins with the obvious part. It often starts where attention breaks, hesitates, or quietly protects itself for a second. Eyes do not simply show confidence or nervousness in some cartoonish way. They often show where the mind just pulled back from full honesty. Not dishonesty always, but distance, friction, or emotion arriving half a beat late. That late arrival is why you can sense something shift before words explain it. A delayed look, a distant stare, a sudden blink pattern can all matter. Not as verdicts, but as clues that inner timing just changed. And inner timing is where hidden motives often leave their fingerprints first. People usually imagine social signals are big, obvious, and easy to identify. In real life, the strongest clues are often small enough to seem accidental. That is why they work on you before you consciously notice them. Your mind is tracking rhythm, tension, and consistency faster than your language system. It compares the smile with the pause, the answer with the eyes. When those pieces fit, you relax without thinking about it much afterward. When they do not fit, you feel that small mental stutter instead. The strange part is rarely the sentence people speak out loud to you. It is the quiet adjustment that happens just beside the sentence. A gaze shifts too fast or stays locked a little too long. A smile remains, but the eyes stop participating for 1 second. A reply sounds casual, but it arrives after an invisible internal argument. You notice it before you can explain it, because your body reads mismatch quickly. That matters more than people realize, because most social trust lives in alignment. We trust what feels synchronized, even when we never name the reason. We become uneasy when emotion, attention, and language stop moving together smoothly. The sudden gaze shift is one of the cleanest examples of that. It often appears when somebody is trying to manage two reactions simultaneously. One reaction follows the social script, and the other leaks through the eyes. They may want to sound relaxed while feeling exposed by the topic. They may want to look unaffected while something just landed deeper than expected. They may want closeness, but fear what closeness might reveal next. So the eyes move because attention briefly escapes the emotional pressure. But the meaning depends on what triggered it and what follows afterward. If the person returns quickly and softens, the shift may signal vulnerability. If they return with stiffness, the shift may signal guardedness instead. If they never return, it may signal withdrawal more than discomfort. The deeper reaction is often not the glance, but the recovery pattern. Recovery tells you whether the mind reopens, defends itself, or quietly shuts down. That is why one isolated signal proves almost nothing by itself. But a repeated pattern around certain topics can become extremely revealing. You watch for clusters, not single flashes, because clusters show emotional structure. And once you see that, ordinary conversations start looking very different. Imagine you mention a simple compliment, and they thank you with a warm voice. But right after thanking you, their gaze drops hard toward the floor. Most people assume shyness, poor confidence, or basic awkwardness and stop there. Sometimes that is true, but sometimes something more specific is happening underneath. A compliment can create instant exposure, especially when someone wants approval but fears being seen. The warm answer handles the social moment, while the eyes manage the emotional impact. They look away because the compliment hit deeper than their expression could safely admit. You're witnessing a brief conflict between receiving attention and tolerating vulnerability. The clue is what happens next, not just the downward glance itself. Do they recover with a real smile, or stay emotionally half-hidden afterward? If warmth returns, the moment may reflect attraction, tenderness, or emotional overload. If distance remains, the compliment may have stirred insecurity or distrust instead. Same action, different psychology, because the sequence around it tells the truth. Now picture a friend saying they are fine after a difficult week. Their mouth smiles on cue, but their eyes suddenly lose focus for a beat. People often assume exhaustion, distraction, or a random lapse in attention there. But that vacant eye moment can signal emotional detachment entering before words catch up. Sometimes, the mind creates distance first, then language rushes in to cover it. When feelings are mixed, people often answer from the version they wish were true. The face delivers the polite answer, while the eyes briefly reveal processing still underway. That distant look may mean sadness, resentment, or quiet disappointment has not settled. It can also mean the person is choosing not to burden you yet. Either way, the mismatch matters because emotion arrived somewhere other than the spoken sentence. You notice it before words explain it, because the eyes stop matching emotional tone. Here's another moment you may have noticed in conversation without understanding it. You make a harmless comment, and someone holds eye contact a little too long. At first, it can feel like confidence, intensity, or simple attentiveness from them. But prolonged eye contact after an ordinary remark often means the mind is checking something. It can be testing your intention, hiding irritation, or freezing around unexpected significance. People sometimes stare longer when they need extra time to reorganize emotion. The eyes stay put while the inner response scrambles for a safe version. Most observers read that as dominance or flirting and move on too quickly. But the real meaning may be tension, challenge, suspicion, or unspoken hurt. Again, context decides everything, especially what was said right before the stillness. If the topic touched status, loyalty, attraction, or embarrassment, the pause becomes more telling. And if the stare ends with a controlled smile, something was probably edited. That is why the quietest reactions can become the loudest signals later. One more pattern shows up when a conversation drifts toward a specific name or subject. The person seems calm, then their eyes shift sideways before their answer appears. Most people call that random movement and assume it means absolutely nothing. But repeated side glances around one topic usually mean the mind is managing friction. Maybe the subject carries guilt, maybe desire, maybe defensiveness, maybe an old unresolved memory. The key is not the direction of the eyes, but the timing of escape. If the shift happens exactly when that topic arrives, attention is dodging impact. They might be choosing words carefully, suppressing emotion, or searching for a safer angle. The calm appearance is not fake, but it may be incomplete. What you are seeing is emotional leakage, not a magical lie detector. That difference matters because leakage shows pressure, not automatic guilt or deception. Pressure can come from shame, longing, fear, conflict, or simply not feeling ready. So, when the eyes shift on one subject and nowhere else, pay attention. Not to accuse, but to notice where the conversation stops being fully effortless. These moments matter because trust is shaped long before trust is spoken aloud. In friendships, you'd notice when support sounds right but attention slips away at impact points. In dating, attraction and fear often appear together, and the eyes reveal the collision. At work, people may agree verbally while their gaze exposes hesitation, threat, or resistance. In family settings, old history can surface through tiny reactions nobody openly names. That is why certain rooms feel tense even when everyone is using polite language. The tension lives inside mismatched timing, not always inside obvious conflict itself. You can use this practically without becoming suspicious of every nervous movement. Start by watching when the shift happens, because timing gives the clearest meaning. Notice whether the eyes move before the answer, during the answer, or after. Each pattern suggests something different about preparation, emotion, and self-control involved. Then notice the delay between words and visible reaction, because delay changes interpretation. A fast smile with late eyes feels different from late words with steady eyes. One suggests managed appearance, while the other suggests emotion catching up slowly. Also watch for sudden stillness, because stillness can be just as revealing as movement. People often freeze for a fraction longer when a subject lands somewhere sensitive. That freeze can be more informative than a dramatic expression ever could be. Facial mismatch matters too, especially when the mouth says ease and the eyes say distance. Or when the face stays calm but blinking suddenly changes after one question. You do not need technical jargon here because the pattern is already familiar. You are simply noticing when visible response and spoken meaning stop arriving together. That skill can protect you from misreading warmth, over-trusting words, or missing discomfort. It can also help you become kinder because hidden tension is not always hostile. Sometimes people look away because they are touched, not because they reject you. Sometimes they stare because they are hurt, not because they want control. Sometimes the delayed reaction means they are filtering emotions so the moment stays safe. That is why curiosity works better than certainty in any emotionally charged interaction. They are the ones who notice patterns without forcing one meaning onto them. One glance alone proves nothing because human behavior is messy and layered. But repeated mismatch around the same trigger deserves your attention every time. Clusters matter more than isolated signals, and recovery matters more than performance. If the eyes shift, the face tightens, and the reply delays, that cluster speaks. If it happens once and never repeats, it may mean almost nothing. Balanced perception means noticing patterns without turning people into puzzles to solve. The real value is not catching people, but understanding emotional weather earlier. You sense when attraction is mixed with fear, when trust is thinning, when hurt appears. You sense when someone is present on the surface but pulling back underneath. And once you recognize that, conversations stop feeling random and start feeling readable. The sudden gaze shift matters because words often hide tension that attention cannot fully hide. The eyes are not confessing secrets so much as revealing pressure points. And pressure points tell you where emotion and intention stopped moving together for a moment. That is the takeaway most people miss when they dismiss these moments as nothing. What unsettles you is usually not imagination, but inconsistency arriving ahead of explanation. If you have seen a strange reaction like this in real life, share below. Novi Mind is here for the signals most people notice but never fully understand. Subscribe if you want sharper insight into behavior, tension, attraction, and hidden emotional patterns. And in the next one, we're looking at the smile that appears too late.